So welcome, Tracie.
Hi, Karen. How are you?
I am fantastic. I'm so glad you're on because I have been watching you for years, as you know, and I just think you are a bloody legend.
Well, that is high praise coming from you because I think you're a legend.
This is the Mutual Admiration Club.
This is. It really is.
Well, you know, because what I want to talk about is that you're going for the seat of Morwell as an independent, and the elections are coming up in November. Well, 24th or 26th, something like that.
26th of November, not that I'm counting sleeps.
And I really want to talk about that because, you know, I have a lot of admiration for someone who stands up for their community. And I also think it takes a lot of courage. And, you know, I really want to get into why you want to do that. But first, I want to sort of give people an idea of who you are because, you know, sometimes we see an independent standing for a seat, you know, and we kind of think, oh, who are they? They just popped out of nowhere. You know, do they even live here? Like a lot of that stuff enters our mind. You know, I never saw that person before. So I want people to really hear about your community investment because I think that's critical of a leader and someone who's running for Parliament and who's going to be representing a whole bunch of people. So how does that sound?
It sounds amazing. I can't wait to talk to you about it all.
And you know what the funny thing is that you, ever since I've known you, you play yourself down. You know, you're kind of like, no, I'm not doing anything. I'm not doing anything great. I'm just doing what I should do. And I bloody love that about you. When I first met you, I don't know, I reckon it might have been 4 or 5 years ago. I can't remember, but it was at the neighbourhood houses AGM, and I met you at Carambara, and you know, you took, I did a keynote, and you took some photos for me, and you know, that was fantastic. But not long after that, I met you at you were doing the Gippsland Community Leadership Program, and you know, it was sort of a great opportunity to rekindle a connection, you know. And I tell you what, I'm so bloody glad we did, because now I'm going to read out your list in a minute, but now I do a lot of leadership you know, programs and facilitation, and you are the person that I often use as the epitome of leadership. So how do you feel about that?
I know you've told me that, and I'm yet to hear it. And I have to admit, when you first told me that, I was like, why? I was wondering why. But I'm keen to hear a bit more about that, and then maybe chip in a little bit if you're happy to.
Oh, well, actually, it's your show, even though it's my show, but I'm just setting the scene for my admiration for what you do. It's, you know, here's the list, and I'm going to unplug a few of them and just sort of, you know, go through it. But just to everybody listening, here's a bit of a background of Tracie. 2011 moved to Traralgon. 2012 started managing the Morwell Neighbourhood House. 2014 there were the mine fires, and she stepped up and absolutely stepped up as a leader in the community. Then in 2014 ran for an independent for the seat of Morwell, securing 11% of the vote, which is huge. And there's another part to that I can't remember, but it's something about you upset a marginalised seat or something like what? Tell me.
So previous to 2014, Morwell was an extremely safe seat. So securing 10.9% of the vote meant that Morwell is now one of the most marginal seats in the state. So it is actually something I'm really proud of, because we know marginal matters.
Yep.
And it is really important to me that the seat of Morwell remains marginal, and for a number of reasons. This seat has powered the state of Victoria. Yep. And it's, for me, election time is really important that we refocus our lens on that power. One, we've powered the seat, but two, we have power in our votes. So it's really important that we really look at who's representing us and how we can get the best representation we can at each election time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree with that. I've seen a lot of candidates or, you know, people even being elected, and they say one thing, you know, and they're not really that invested. It's all about ego. And you know, people are going to get cranky with me for saying that. And I don't give a shit really, because, you know, people do that, and then they're really disappointing. And one thing I know about you is that that's not going to happen. Whatever you're saying you're going to do, you're going to be fighting tooth and nail for. And in fact, I've seen you run yourself into the ground, standing up for what you believe in, which, you know, maybe you and I need to talk about self-care, but
sometimes I think we do. I'm probably not the best at that. I wouldn't be the poster child for self-care. I'm aware of that, but I have really good people around me that, you know, will often just stop me in my tracks and go, you know, it's time to stop. You need to take a rest. And I think if you can have good people around you when you don't have that self-monitoring ability, and those people can recognize that for you, you know, that's just, it's priceless, but it's actually, you know, the glue that keeps you going. So I'm really lucky that I have that, because I think, yeah, I would run myself into the ground. And I think for me, it's about that passion for people and the work that I do. I often talk about how my job, I'm so lucky that I have it, because I get to interact with people every day in our community, and I get to make a difference. And I drive down to Morwell every day from Traralgon, knowing that I'm going to make a difference to somebody today. And that's really what powers me. It's what keeps me going. It's what makes me take that drive every day. And it's what makes me get up in the morning. And I guess it's that, for me, it's about that purpose. That gives me purpose.
I love that. And I remember when you were doing GCLP, and one, you know, the workshop I did at the very end, one of the questions was, what gets you up in the morning? And for me to hear you saying to make a difference, geez, that matters. That's why I get up every day, you know, and God, I love that. I love you, actually. Just you know, so just to put it out there, I love you.
You're amazing. You know what I've learned about having a purpose, is that I often see people that are without purpose, and they're struggling every day, you know, just with, you know, the meaning of life, with getting out of bed, with, you know, they're struggling with the, you know, basic necessities. And then when I can offer them an opportunity at the house, whether that be, you know, volunteering, or maybe it's about supporting them with food, or maybe it's about me making a phone call on their behalf, I can see that switch in people, because suddenly it's like somebody cares and there's a purpose for me now. So, and I think that's the stuff that makes my heart sing, and that's the stuff that grounds me every day and reminds me that we, you know, we really should be giving more than what we're taking. And every time we do that, we make a difference to somebody, and we mightn't even know that difference. And I think sometimes it's hard to sort of hang on to that. And you're like, I know I've had some bad days where I've thought, you know, is what I'm doing, does it matter to anybody? And guaranteed, when I'm in that slump, I will meet somebody or interact with somebody that will say something to me like, you know, your support made all the difference in the world to me. You know, when you did that thing, that was so powerful for me. And I'm just like, you know, and that kind of puts that spring back in my step and gives me that purpose. So I think always looking for your purpose, for me, is really what we should be doing, because we can make such a difference on such a, you know, a small scale, but a huge, you know, a big scale, a huge scale, but also on our community scale, you know, really being able to do that. Those little things each time make a difference across our community.
It's amazing that a lot of people think they can't make a difference to, you know, and it's but you know, when you're talking about that just that little thing that you do for people, you know, someone says, oh, that support you gave me, that can be saving somebody's life. That actually can be the day that they were giving up, you know, and you just do that little bit of kindness, and that's immeasurable. You just do the tiniest little thing, and it is an entire life to somebody else. So I agree with you. We've got to show up. We've got to show up to make a difference and have purpose.
Oh, absolutely. And I'll just share something now, because you've just reminded me of something. And I don't always talk about this, but when I was growing up, and it feels like a long time ago now, and it was a lifetime ago for me. My life is completely different, but I come from a highly disadvantaged family, and there was lots of issues in my family around domestic violence, gambling, alcohol, and I'd show up at school every day, but it was, and I remember this intently. There were a couple of teachers along the way that identified that I was probably in struggle street at that time. And they reached out to me in a different way to, say, the other teachers and my classmates at the time. And I still remember how they supported me, and they're a hand of extension of like, you're going to be okay. I'm here for you. I remember it to this day. And even though what they did was quite small, in some cases it was just giving me a sandwich for lunch. Other times it was taking me out of the classroom and taking me up to the deputy principal's office so I could sit there and help, and it was a very important role when I was in year 5 and 6 to help the deputy principal. And then as I went into high school, there was a teacher that reached out to me in a different way and just let me know that he knew something was not quite right for me and he was there if I wanted to talk. Now, I never took that offer up, but I can remember just being, just really feeling like somebody understood, somebody cared, somebody noticed, and that made a difference to me at the time. So I think from my own lived experience, it's something that I've really taken away from, because if I hadn't have had these little engagements along the way where people had reached out a hand of kindness or, put their hand on my back and said, it's okay, we understand, or do you need anything, or here's a sandwich, without me prompting, without me asking, I don't think that I would have, appreciated the support that I could get. But I don't think that I valued myself at that time, where these little interactions made me think that, maybe I'm okay. Maybe I will be okay. Maybe if I just keep trying, I can make a difference somehow to somebody else. And they inspired me to really be thinking about that. And I guess as life, you're traveling around life, when you do things and you make mistakes and that, but always in the back of my mind has been that support that I've had along the way, those people that have championed me in a different way. And as I've got older and then I've, come into work at the Neighbourhood House, and you mentioned earlier about the mine fire and standing up for that, I can tell you now that I was absolutely scared about saying anything at the time. But there were a number of key leaders that reached out to me and really, acknowledged, one, that I was there, 2, that I had a voice, and really encouraged me to use that voice. And it's support, again, that I'll never forget, but really helped me find the courage to keep going and do the things that I needed to do for our community at that time.
I was going to ask you about that, about when you did stand up at those fires, because it was kind of like, all hell was breaking. Well, actually was like hell, the bloody town was on fire, well, all around it. And it was kind of like nobody knew what to do. No one was taking responsibility. It was just a bloody mess. And then you just sort of come up like what's that thing rising out of the fire? I can't.
Yeah.
Phoenix.
I will say I had no clue what I was doing, but I knew what was happening was wrong.
Yep.
So, and I think if you've got a good sense of right from wrong, and if you've got a good sense of social justice, they're quite empowering spaces to work in. So I knew what was happening to our town was wrong, and I also knew the information that we were given at the time was also misleading and not supporting our health. And I don't know if you're aware of this, and sometimes I look back at it and I go, I don't even know why I did that. But at the time, I started recording my interactions with people. So I would get a phone call, or somebody would pop in and they'd say, live on Macmillan Street, and they'd say to me, I've got a thick head, I can't think, or something. So I'd write it down, I'd write the date down, and I'd write resident on Macmillan Street reports saying that they've got a thick head or a constant headache or they can't breathe. So I started really, really early. I think it was like day 2 or 3 of recording these community interactions I was having. And to this day, I'm pretty confident we were the only space that actually recorded any information from the community. And I could actually see really early on that the immediate health implications were running across our community. They weren't just in the south side of Morwell, they were across our community. And it was alarming. So people were having immediate health effects. And then it started to turn my mind to, what are the long-term health effects, and what are we going to see out of this? Because at the time, the government of the day was saying, no, there won't be any long-term health effects, but we actually didn't understand, one, what was in the smoke. And this was an industrial disaster. It wasn't even, it was being sold as a bushfire smoke, but it certainly wasn't. It was a hazmat. So it was toxic fumes, toxic ash that was falling from the sky. And we still won't understand and won't really know the full impacts of that event on our health. And that'll be across our community. But certainly, I think we're better placed than what we would have been if nobody had spoken up, if there hadn't have been community, I guess, pushback against that. And it really was community, and it wasn't just me. There was a number of people that started to vocalise their distress and their concern. But there were a number of community people that recognised that we had to push back against this. And I still don't believe that the government or any successive governments would have taken any notice of that event or implemented any, I guess, programs. I mean, we've got the Health Innovation Zone, we have the health study. There's been a number of things that have happened as I guess, a knock on from that event. But also at the time, and I find this I find this one of the more interesting things, and one of the less well-known things, is that there were no smoke protocols at the time. So everyone I was interacting with was saying, oh, there's no smoke protocols, so you just got to stay there. So there was no triggers to evacuate the community or the town or parts of the town. And since then, since the fallout of the mine fire, we now have smoke protocols. So now when you see an industrial hazmat fire or an incident that maybe, say, a tyre fire, sometimes those tyre spaces catch alight, you will now see the communities in the surrounding areas door knocked and evacuated. And that's a result of that community pushback from Hazelwood Mine Fire, because there were no smoke protocols. So that incident, as devastating as it was and has been on our community, and like I said, we won't really know the full impacts on our health for some time, has set a precedent for change around smoke protocols, around how our education providers support our children. I know at the time I was sending emails to my children's schools. And I reflect back on that sometimes thinking, I must have sounded like the crazy parent. Because I was like, it's really smoky outside. Can you just keep the children in? And I knew full well they were going back to the education department that were then saying, there's nothing to see here. There's no smoke protocols. Let them out. And I was dying inside every time I got an email back going, Tracie, we've checked with the education department. It's safe for them to be outside. I knew it wasn't. So I felt like I was in this torn little space where I wanted to protect my children and be a mum, but I also needed to respond to the community and step up in a space that I was completely uncomfortable in. And I didn't know the space. I didn't know how to work with media, and I didn't know what I really could be saying. And I was quite nervous about what I did say at the time, because I didn't want to upset anyone. If that makes sense. I didn't want to say the wrong thing, so I was always second guessing myself and what can I say, what's safe to say. Now I can fast forward 8 years and say that I've grown in my confidence and my courage to be able to speak up in our community. But that at that time, that was one of the biggest personal struggles I've ever had in my life, is trying to position myself and understand where I could speak and where I could have the most impact. And I was terrified as well, because what we were experiencing was so different to what we were being told we were experiencing. So it was completely out of step. So to stand against that or even question that with the authorities of the day was a really challenging space to be in.
But you did it, you found the courage. And I think that when we've got a deep enough value, that we value something deeply enough, and we that moral, moral right and wrong, I think that, but often people won't stand up. Often people have got that fear. And like you're saying, I had a fear, I was really scared. I didn't know what to do.
Oh.
And you also mentioned in there that you positioned, how you're positioning yourself, and it comes back to that great saying that leadership is not a position, it's an action. And when you take action, you do position yourself. You're not waiting for somebody else to give you permission to have that position. You're saying, no, I'm going to take action, and I'm positioning myself where I need to bloody position myself. And
that's right.
important.
And I think that was the reflection I had at the time, is one, it was about the action, but it was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And what's that saying when you're silent? Oh, sorry.
Well, if you say nothing, you're actually, apathy is standing up for the perpetrator,
Yeah, and I guess I kept coming back to that. If I didn't say anything, then I was making it okay somehow.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't. And I was suffering as well. I was going down there every day, and I could tell you the difference from driving from Traralgon to Morwell. By the time I got to Morwell, I had this thick head, I had stinging eyes.
Wow.
Even trying to work in that environment when your health is being immediately impacted, to think clearly, to support people the way they needed to be supported, that was going against the grain at the time.
Yeah.
It was an extremely challenging space, and I was really lucky that I had, like I said earlier, I actually had some key leaders reach out to me and say, keep doing what you're doing. We need a community voice. You're actually on the right track. And that was the stuff that was kind of behind the scenes when I felt like I was failing and I couldn't do it anymore. And maybe I was positioning myself in the wrong space. Maybe I was just making this up. I don't know. Maybe there's nothing to see here like they're telling us. It was those people that were reaching out to me and telling me that I was okay, and that my voice was, was important, and I was on the right track. It was that kept kind of spurring me on, going, okay, maybe I'm okay. And it was also the community that were coming in to see me at the house, that were identifying they were in trouble, that were calling because they were having health impacts, or they were worried about their children, or they were concerned about what the health impacts were going to be, whatever it was, whatever they were bringing me. And I was recording. Every time I'd look back on what I'd written down, it was giving me that sense of purpose, like I've got to keep going.
Yeah. Someone's
got to say something. So for me, I guess that's where it really started, is that kind of, I won't say that incidental leadership. I guess it's that community, that really kind of grassroots leadership started for me there, is that there was an issue, there's an incident, there's a problem, and somebody needs to say something.
Yeah.
So that was the driving purpose, I guess, for me at that time. Now, if I fast forward 8 years, the whole world of things have happened for me in that time. But it's still why I get up in the morning. My love for Morwell and the electorate, I guess, is really important to me. And I get to see on the ground all the time where I make a difference. So that's really important. But that work through the mine fire is something that, for a number of years, Karen, I didn't even want to talk about. I really shied away from, because I felt like it had tainted me somehow as well, and that people saw me in a light that wasn't really reflective of where the work was and why I'd done it. So it took me a long time to come to the understanding and be comfortable with the fact that people didn't have to like what I did. They didn't have to even appreciate it. They could blow raspberries at me, but I still stand by how I worked, what I did, and how I supported the community, and why it was important, and why I'd do it again tomorrow. But I had to get comfortable with the fact that not everybody appreciated that, and not everyone saw it the same way. And I had to also get comfortable with, not everybody has to like you. You don't have to be everybody's cup of tea.
Exactly.
we're taught from such a small age, you've got to be liked by everybody, and you've got to make friends with everybody, and that was always in the back of my head. What if they don't like me? If I say something, they're not going to like me if I say something. And I've had to really wrestle with that. And I don't know, just that journey for me has, so much of it has been about it's okay not to be liked.
Yes.
As long as I'm comfortable and I'm doing the right thing, that's all that matters to me now. Yeah.
Well, otherwise we don't never do anything. We're just worried about what everybody thinks. We don't do anything. But I love everything you're talking about there. It's pure systemic advocacy. And a lot of people think that systems change and programs, when you talk about all the programs that came into that were put into place because of your advocacy. And a lot of people think that we're just going to wait for the government to do that. We're just going to wait for a big agency to do that. We're just going to wait. And so that makes us powerless. We sit there thinking, well, I can't do anything about it, and I'm just waiting for these people. But these people are just often pen pushers and paper flickers, without an emotional investment in it. And people like you, people like us, can make systemic advocacy. We can change systems by speaking up, even if we're scared shitless.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I think the best and the biggest changes actually come directly from community. Those community change makers that are on the ground, that understand the issues and that are willing to put their self on the line to advocate for them. That's where the change is made. And if I look back at at that time, it was really scary because we hadn't really seen that before. And I also got the tag at the time because I, as you said earlier in the program, only moved here at the end of 2011. And I started working at the Neighbourhood House in June 2012. But in 2014, here I am speaking up about what's happening in our community, why it's a problem. What are the, I was asking the hard questions. What are the long-term health impacts here? What's going to happen to our community? And so I quickly got, and this is something that's kind of powered me forward, and I'll share it because it makes me laugh a little bit now. But at the time, I quickly got, you're not one of us. You're not a local. And I got a lot of that at the time, and I really took that to heart. And I was like, yeah, I'm actually not a local. And then I started to second guess myself again. What right have I got to say anything? I'm not a local. I'm not from here. But what I started to recognize is that was the power that I had.
Yep.
Not being local meant that my lens wasn't coloured in the same way. So I actually was able to speak out because I didn't have those ties that the locals did have. I didn't have that weight bearing me down that, I'd had fathers or grandfathers that had worked in the mines. Do you know what I mean? Like I didn't have those connections. Yeah. So I could actually speak my truth about it. So at the time, while it was terrifying being told, you're not a local, you don't speak for us, it actually became part of the power that I had, is that I did see it through a different lens. And I was like, okay, I'm not a local, but there's still a problem here. And I'm seeing this and viewing this very, very differently, and I'm prepared to speak up about it. So it became a power as well. But now I've kind of, over the years, I've used that as my benchmark. And I'll share this because my husband finds this the funniest thing ever. And he's like, he actually tells people this when they ask, like, Tracie's not a local, but she wants to be buried here. So I started to use it as like, it was kind of my mindset. My challenge was, what do I have to do to be buried here, to become a local? What do I need to do?
Yeah.
Because they're right, I'm not a local. I am viewing it through a different lens, but if I want to be buried here, how do I become a local? And so that's where I set my benchmarker, is like, what do I have to do on the ground in my day-to-day work to become a local? And since then, recently I was talking to somebody about this, and they gave me a big hug saying, but you are local. And
I agree.
Somebody that's, has long-standing family ties here.
Yeah.
And while they see me as local now, and I really, really appreciated that, I would say back in 2014, they probably didn't. And when I was explaining that I use this as, I wanted to understand what I needed to do to be buried here. How do I become a local? Because this place is so important to me.
Yeah.
and the outcomes, the good outcomes that we deserve is really important to me, and I want to continue to advocate for that. But now he sees me as a local, and so many people do, but I still use that as my benchmark, is like, I've got to be working towards that, and I want to make sure that I can be buried here, and that when I do go, that I've left a legacy of relationships and impact, that the community can be proud of, that my family can be proud of, and that I can be proud of.
Oh, I love that. And I tell you what was striking me when you were saying that was that, you know, that you're only here for 3 years, and people weren't saying you're local, but I know people that live in communities for 20 years and never interact with anybody else, and they don't want a bar of what's going on in the community. And now for you to come in and within 3 years you're saying, screw this, I love this place so much that I'm going to throw myself on the line, you know, to defend this place. That is the epitome of a community member. Do you know, like, there's just so much irony in everything you're saying, but
I know there is.
it.
And it's just, for me, it was, well, I don't get to actually talk about this stuff very often. I'm not really asked about these sort of things. You know, I'm asked about food insecurity and housing insecurity and lots of other important issues that are happening in our community, and I'll advocate and speak in those spaces, but I'm not asked about why I do the things that I do or how I got here. So it's a different space for me to speak in. But I think it's really important for people to understand that, I guess, you know, what powers those leaders that you see in your community, or those people that you might see as community leaders, and also not to judge. I think that's the other thing that I've learned along the way. And, you know, we all do it. I can put my judgy McJudge pants on sometimes. Like, why am I doing that? That makes no sense to me at all. And quite often when I go up and then I try, you know, and reach out and have those conversations, there's an understanding there about what we're trying to do. And this is something that I've come away with recently, is that even in the lead up to this state election, as I've spoken to the candidates along the hustings, we all want great things for the Valley. We might differ in our views about how we're going to get there or what we think it needs.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, everybody that is standing as a candidate wants to make change, wants to see, you know, Latrobe, the seat of Morwell, prosper, and wants good things for our people. And I think, you know, I look at that and go, you know, oh, you know, these people may be my competition, but I actually see them as friends.
Yeah.
Because it's really hard to put yourself on the line and stand up for something that you believe in, whether you're in a party or whether you're independent, or whether you're just there to shake the tree because you want somebody to take notice of a particular issue that you might, you know, you think is important to our community. Standing up and using your voice in whatever capacity you can is the most powerful thing you can do. And it should be applauded every time we see somebody do it. We shouldn't be trying to knock them down at the knees. We should absolutely be going, buddy, you know, well done, keep going. You know, we need to hear these things. We don't have to all agree, but it's important that we have people stand up and advocate in their spaces, in the, you know, for what they believe in. Like, I've had somebody recently reach out to me about cat desexing, because that's really important to them. It doesn't matter what it is. Yeah. As long as you can speak your truth about it, and you can, you know, you're prepared to raise that as an issue, people will take notice.
I know. I was just having that same conversation yesterday, actually, about why we're so quick to criticize, like, when people are doing things that we don't necessarily agree with. And I don't mean harming people, because I've got me judgy McJudgy pants on about people who are harming people or animals.
Yeah, I agree.
Elderly, disabled, don't freaking do that, you know. Yeah, but when people have got difference of opinion, you know, and they're brave enough to stand up, we should be celebrating. You know, we should be patting them on the back for being brave, because everything in life tells us not to be brave. You know, everything in life tells us sit down, shut up, don't speak, don't rock the boat, you know, and don't get people offside, and don't have people not like you. Like, that's everything we're told. So I reckon we should be celebrating. Now, speaking of these elections, because I've got 1,000 things I could talk to you about. I'm just going to go through the list, because I want to, you know, you did GCLP, which is a leadership. You were have been elected a sitting councillor of Latrobe City Council, which you still are right now. You helped in the Traralgon floods without anybody asking. You just got straight in there and just fixed some problems. You started up the Kinda Cup, which is a cafe that's run from Auspice or whatever from the Morwell Neighbourhood House, which is unfortunately shut at the moment because of lack of patronage, because of people working from home. You've got the food bank that's running out of Morwell Neighbourhood House. And these are just a few things like, these are your hairdressing. I just interviewed a few weeks ago, Julie Phillip, who comes to your house doing the hairdressing. I know, or should I say barbering? So you got like what I love about you is you just say, well, this needs to happen, and then it just gets done. And so we haven't got time to go through everything, but I only wish we did, because you're just incredible. But let's talk about this state election. And I remember you telling me, it was a couple of months ago. I said, are you sure? Like, Jesus, Tracie, you've got that much on. You sure you want to put yourself through this? And you said, Karen, that saying, somebody should do something. And then I realized, well, I am somebody, so I'm doing something. And all I could say to you was, I bloody applaud you. Fantastic. So what was it? I know you've done it once before. I was at 2014, but what was it this time that you, because you could look at the last one as, even though you won 11%, you could still go, I was defeated. I'm never doing that again, because this is what a lot of people do. I'm never doing that again. I made a fool of myself. Nobody cares. It's easy to run like that. But you're like, no, I'm having another crack at it. What was it that made you say, you know what? I need to stand up for this. I need to do this.
So there were a couple of things, I guess, that I realised I'm somebody is one of them. And I think that's a really important lesson. I've got 2 girls and a son, and I think for me, I'm always looking at how I can set an example of how do you be brave? How do you stand up for something you believe in, even if you think you might fail, or you think nobody's listening or nobody cares? How do you use your voice? And that's really important to me. And it's really important to me that if there is a social justice issue, which I believe that there is many in the seat of Morwell, that you can speak up for those things. So I think for me, this time, I really felt like we've got a number of problems and issues and I don't want to speak on that deficit space, but if we look at how we're transitioning our coal community, in diversifying our industries and our businesses so that this community doesn't get left behind. I'm not sure where we need to be right now. Yeah. And I have got great concern that we're going to be left behind. Yeah. That coal will close, whether we, like it or not, whether we're ready for it or not. And I guess the last couple of years with COVID, I feel like we've taken our finger off the pulse a little bit. Now, I know that those global impacts have been far-reaching and we've had that immediate crisis to deal with. But the fact is, coal is still shutting down. And in terms of being ground zero for that, Latrobe is ground zero for that. And I feel like I get to see that pointy end every day of where this fails. People that are living on the edge, that fall off the edge, that are living in poverty. And if we don't get this right, get the transition right, and if we don't invest in employment, and we haven't got somebody shouting from the rooftops about it, then I'm deeply concerned that we will be left behind. And I guess for me, offering that independent space means that I'm not beholden to a party or their views or their agendas. My party is the community. And I've been entrenched, like working in the trenches now for 10 solid years. I had to think about that. And I know the community extremely well. They have unfettered access to me on a daily basis. So, over that time, I've really got to understand, one, what the problems are, but also, I guess, what what our community feels like the solutions might be, where they're looking to place their aspirations and their visions and their dreams. And so many times I get told over and over again, we just want somebody to stand up for us. We just want somebody to say that stuff, the hard stuff that people won't ask, like, I guess, what are we doing with mine rehabilitation? How will those mines, and they're massive, become assets to our community? Because that's what our community wants. They want them to be assets that that maybe they can be economic assets. Maybe they want them, as an opportunity to really be visionary about how we rehab them. But there's not the resourcing to do that. So how do we get people on board to actually really look at that and not offer us just that one solution option of filling it with water? Let's look at all the options, that sort of thing. And I feel like for me that I've just recently turned 50.
Yeah.
And there's something empowering about that, where I'm like, I'm happy to say it. I'm happy to say the hard things. I don't feel like I've got to have the solutions for everything or the technical knowledge for everything, where perhaps, even 5 years ago, I felt like I didn't know enough.
Yeah.
But I know enough to know right from wrong. And I can speak up in spaces that the community see are important if they identify that with me. And over the last particularly the last 8 years, I've been an advocate for so many issues in our community. So I feel like I'm quite well positioned this time to actually raise those issues that are really important to our community and that matter. And you know what I didn't want to see? And I didn't want to see another election period for Latrobe that we just talked about infrastructure.
Yeah.
If I'm elected, I'll build this thing. If we're elected, we'll invest in this thing. I really wanted to have the opportunity to talk about the impacts of successive governments failing to invest in public and social housing. What does that actually look like? What does it look like? What does health and planning look like? We've been made a health innovation zone, which is wonderful on paper, and it's about co-designing, our health programs as we go forward. But we're also heavy industry zoned. So how do those two marry up? Like, which one trumps which? And we've seen that heavy industry zone trumps the health innovation zone with the, approval of ULAB. So how do we coexist those two things? In my mind, I actually don't know, but I'm prepared to have those discussions. I really want to understand what we can do to ensure that ending industry coming into the valley, and we welcome, industries here. We really want to see a diversification of industry, but we want to make sure that they're health neutral, or they have neutral impacts on our health. We don't want to be in a position where our health is being sacrificed over and over again for industry, on the pretense that, this is employment as well. And we know that it is, but we can have employment that is looking at being, that is health friendly as well. I guess that's what I'm saying. So those issues to me are really important. If I look at the Latrobe, the Latrobe Valley Authority, my mind went blank because so many authorities and that, that's a really important body to be looking at the transition of our community and that economic diversity of our community. But it's only a resource for 12 months at a time. If we're serious about ensuring that Latrobe's not left behind, that needs long-term secured funding. Things like that, I really want to be able to advocate those really important issues, raise the profile of those issues, and not just, I guess, sort of set the pace. So we're not just talking about, like I said, infrastructure builds or things that will, I find that are a little bit abstract in detail of how we'll do it, like we'll fix the health crisis. And if we're very clear about how long it will take, because none of these things are short-term fixes or things that we can fix tomorrow. They are long-term investment. They have to be looked at with long-term lenses, but ensuring that our community is along for the ride. And I think sometimes in our spaces we forget the voices of community and those that are what I call the hardly reached and the unheard are definitely not at those decision-making tables, and their voices don't actually filter up in the way that they should. So I feel like I've got my finger on the pulse with that cohort of the community, but also the broader community. My role at council has allowed me to have sort of a more strategic understanding of what the needs of our great region are, and how we might be able to be, working more cooperatively with different bodies, with government agencies, with businesses, to ensure that we get to where we need to go. But also my work in the trenches on the ground at Morwell Neighbourhood House, informs another space. It informs that space for me of like that community voice. What are actually the problems? What communities see as the problems? Because I get to hear it and interact with it every day. So it made sense for me to speak up, to put myself out there. And like I said before, I think it's really important that we do that when we feel really impassioned about something, that we be brave enough to say it. We don't have to win. We have to, even just being in the mix makes a difference, because people that have never been engaged in politics before or felt like their vote didn't matter will start identifying with somebody that they feel that represents them. And I know a number of times now since I've announced, I've engaged with people who have actually said to me, I always felt like it didn't matter what I did if I voted, and I don't even care, but because you're running, I'm taking notice.
Wow.
Because you're running, I feel like I've got a voice. And even if it's just one or two people, that is making a difference. That's actually, it's allowing them to understand that their vote is important, that they do have power, and that they should make informed decisions about their candidates, where their candidates are positioned on matters that matter to them and items that matter to them. And then they should then vote according to how they would like to see the candidates nominated or candidates represent them. They should vote in that order. But for me, every time I talk to somebody that says it matters to me now, I feel like I've made all the difference in the world, because that's empowering in themselves. If it's just this one time that it's mattered, it will matter now to them in future elections.
And not only that, it's the ripple effect. If they suddenly feel like they've got a voice, through voting or through a voice through somebody else's voice, then that ripple effect is then they tell the next person, oh yeah, this is good because you can change, blah blah blah, and people feel powerless. And whenever you can empower somebody to feel like they can make a difference, that's massive.
Oh, I think it's huge. And I think, to me, already, like I said, a number of people have identified to me that they've never taken any notice at polling time, but they are this time because they feel like their voice matters. And to have people that have been politically disengaged, I guess living on the fringes, marginalised, to then say they actually feel like they have a voice or their vote matters, that's really important to me as well. And I want to engage people on that level as much as I can, because if you don't care about your education system, if you don't care about your health system, if you don't care about, your health system, all of these things, then, then your voice doesn't matter, does it? And your vote doesn't matter. But if you're impacted in any way with these things, through the education system, the health system, food security, housing, all of these things, if you're impacted in any way, then it does matter to you. So I think if we can provide an opportunity for people to see how they can make a difference and what the power of their vote is, that's really important going forward. And they will vote according to what they want to see. So if the good people of the seat of Morwell want to see me elected, that's what they'll vote for.
Yeah.
And if they don't, if they say, look, Tracie, we love your work, but we don't quite love you that much, we don't think you're ready for that, then I'll still go back to my day job, and I still have an impact every day, and I still remain in this community, advocating and being a community voice. So it was my 14-year-old daughter as well that kind of pushed me over the edge and said to me one day, Mum, you've got nothing to lose. You make a difference either way. And I thought, I don't.
Yeah.
I get an opportunity to advocate as an independent, and well, these are the important things to our community, and I get to raise those issues over the next number of weeks. But if I don't get in, I still get to raise those issues, and I still get to be advocating in our community, and I still get to do my really important, powerful, impactful work every day. And the good people of the seat of Morwell will still allow me to be buried here. They still see me as local. So I don't know. And sometimes it's when people say things to you like that, having my daughter say, you make a difference no matter what, you've got nothing to lose and you should do this. It was really important to me. And, I haven't had the best year this year. I've had a really rough year. And I just... and I wasn't sure whether I should or whether I had the energy to. But in the end, I felt like it was really important that I did. And sometimes you've got to put yourself, it's bigger than you. You've got to put yourself out there, and you've got to, because it will make a difference. And I think if nothing else, I feel like the seat will stay marginal, and I'll be able to set a pace for the other candidates to follow, because we're going to be talking about, my team and myself will be talking about these really important issues in our community.
And even if you didn't get in, when you're talking about you could just go back to your job, but the fact is you've had a voice, a strong voice that's been listened to for the last few months. So that was an opportunity to bring those issues up and to put them out there for other people to hear. And now that they've been put out there, they can't be taken back. They're already on the table. So now, whether you get in or not, people are talking about these issues. I hope you do get in. Now, I can tell you something else too, and I don't want your opinion on this because, and I know you won't give it, but I don't want anyone to sway either way about your thoughts. But for me, I think that people are politically disengaged because of the bloody schmozzle that's gone on for the last few years. Now, that's my personal political opinion, and I don't want you to share what your thoughts are on it. But the point is that, when people become disillusioned by government, they do become, it's kind of like, what's the point? What's the bloody point? They're just a pack of dickheads. This is a sort of rhetoric that we get going. So to have people that they can actually feel safe with, and feel like that even if you can't get things through in Parliament, here and there, that they know you've got their back. They know that you're going there with these issues, and that you're voicing these issues, and that you're putting your heart on the line in Parliament, trying to advocate for them. That's what people care about, whether you succeed or whether you don't succeed, or whether you only succeed sometimes. The fact that somebody's seen them and heard them, value what matters to them, and that they are a voice for them, that's vital in the communities, any community.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that having that representation that is reflective of the community, its aspirations, and its and the issues it raises, being taken seriously and being taken to that next level, of representation at Parliament is really important. But I think, look, if I look around, every seat is important. But for me, my heart is in Latrobe. And I just see that there are so many issues that need to be raised, concerns that need to be aired. There's opportunities for collaboration, and really kind of raising the bar on, one, representation, but two, ensuring that our community isn't left behind. And that is a real concern for me on many levels. Like I said, if I look at my councillor hat, and if I look at if I work through to the hat that my day-to-day job, I have a real concern that Latrobe will be left behind if
Yeah.
we don't have really strong advocacy. It's not, it's not terrible, it's not bad yet, and there's definitely work there, but there's, what's that saying, when you can do better, you should, when you can do better, you should do better. So
Oh yeah, I can't think it's close to that. I can't think.
yeah, so and for me it's about, some of it's about that, is like, we know that there's some real huge, massive challenges for Latrobe as we go forward.
Yeah.
And so we should be putting our best foot forward. So we should be ensuring that good people that have got, the back of our community, that are prepared to put themselves on the line, that's who I want representing us.
Yeah, I agree.
Every election, I want really good people standing up saying, I'm going to have a go at this because I believe in my heart that I can represent and support our community, so that we get some amazing outcomes. So whether I'm a party candidate or an independent, I want that person to be having our back all the time, and having the aspirations of our community in their back pocket, and fighting for that no matter what it is. I want them fighting for that all the time. So if I can raise that bar a little bit and raise that narrative and the importance of people actually nominating at the state election. And that's another thing, is that, so many times I've spoken to people going, oh, I've thought about doing, maybe I should do it, but I've talked myself out of it, because you have to be quite brave to put yourself on the line. And I know as a woman, if I think back to 2014, when I first started speaking up, all of these media, I guess, sort of, I was going to say, I'm just looking for the right word. So, the media slander of Julia Gillard at the time, it terrified me. Though, it was things about what earrings she was wearing and how she was dressed, and and I was really quite frightened of speaking up in that space, because I thought, as a woman, I'm just
a target.
I'm a target. It doesn't matter what I wear, what I say, what I do, and someone's going to, make fun of me or belittle me, or, and it's really hard. And I really would encourage more women to think about nominating at elections, whether that's state, local, federal, and really advocating for the issues that are important to them, because the diversity, on the ballot paper is really important. It's important to our community, but it's important so that we can get really good outcomes for our communities. Because if we don't provide that diversity, then the same old faces get in.
Yeah. And the same old attitudes. Yeah.
And the same old attitudes, the same old space, because we're not offering our community a different alternative. And so I think that's another reason for me why I started to really think, well, look, I mightn't have the energy and I mightn't feel completely up to it, but but I have to find it, because if I can set an example for someone after me to follow me and just go, well, what if she did it, I can do it.
Yeah.
That's really important as well. And if I can set an example for my 14 and 19-year-old daughters who in the future, I hope that aren't afraid to speak up and can hold their truth.
Yep.
Even when they know they might be knocked down at the knees by other people, but if they can hold their truth and stand up for what they believe in, and call things out and call bad behaviour out, which is something that I've always been frightened of doing as well, because you don't want to make yourself a target.
Yeah.
I want them to do that. And if we want better standards, with our politicians and better standards in terms of how we're being represented, then we absolutely have to have diversity on the ballot paper.
Yep, we absolutely do. And we need way more women. I love, I love everything you've talked about. I just, no, I really do love it. I've absolutely loved having you on, because I just think that, one, I wanted to talk about you being a leader in just standing up in society, just standing up in the community, standing up for the community. you've gone all out and put yourself into the state elections. I mean, but we need that. And to me, you're the epitome of get off the bench. You're the epitome of leadership. You just you see your need, you stand there, but also with the leadership is you have got people following you on the journey. You are leading people to a better place. And I absolutely love it. Now, Tracie, people are going to want to, like, you've got 7 things that are in your vision, and I want to send people there. I'll quickly read them out, but I want to send people to your website. A just transition, that is from coal power to renewable energy, mine rehabilitation and water allocation, social and public housing, health and community services, health in the context of the Planning and Environmental Protection Acts, climate action and response, and long-term funding for the Latrobe Valley Authority, which you talked about before. And without this could be a whole other episode going into them, which we won't do. But please, I'd love people to go to your website and actually, just give you the 5 minutes to check it out and actually start to think, what, this stuff is important. And particularly if you live in Latrobe Valley, this stuff is important. And I'm so bloody glad that somebody's standing up for this stuff. So where can people go to find you to read all about this?
Yeah, so you can go to the webpage. So it's tracielund.com.au. You can actually find me on Facebook as well. So it's Tracie Lund. I'm on Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Twitter. So I'm on all the socials. Failing that, a lot of people just pop into the neighbourhood house to see me as well. I think I'm the most accessible candidate there is. I do work in a public space so people can come in and out. But look, try those options, reach out in any way that you are comfortable with. We will respond and then get in touch with you and, as quickly as we can. I will say that being an independent, we don't have a lot of resourcing. So I've got a small team working with me. Sorry, my dog's just jumped up. So we work as hard, and we're all working full time. So so we will get back to you as quick as we can. And I just wanted to say, I think that the important thing of the get off the bench for me is, and I've heard you speak a number of times, Karen, is that I've always come away with the walking alongside in my mind, is that not only are we getting off the bench and you're speaking up and you're getting your good stuff done, but the importance of leadership that walks alongside people and doesn't work at them is really invaluable. And I think that that's something that we both carry in our hearts. So it's something that I certainly appreciate of you and the way that you work as well. So walking alongside people is so important, and not just leading from the top down. Really important spaces.
Well, thank you for that feedback. And I totally agree, because that's empowerment. Otherwise, you're just dictating and saying, follow me, and expecting people to go blindly. So walking beside people is truly empowering them to, because they might want to go off on a different journey, and that's fantastic. So we empower them, walk beside them and say, what do you want to do?
That's right. Yeah.
And I got everything you want to do. I would like to do this. You say, great, then go ahead and do that.
And that's the power in it, isn't it? It's ensuring that people are safe in their spaces, that they can advocate where they need to, and that they can make those little differences in their day-to-day lives, or with their friends and family. There's so many ways that people lead, I guess, and or become really good leaders. And I will say, just on that leadership thing, and it's something that I think about a little bit when I reflect on my own practice and what am I doing? Does it make a difference? Am I right? Do I need to be right? Is it okay to be wrong? And I think that's the thing, is owning the stuff we get wrong. Because there's so many times I go, I didn't get that right. I actually let you down there. I didn't understand it fully. And I think if we can own some of that, we learn so much more out of those mistakes as well than what we, I guess, we'd like to admit.
I agree. Well, that's humility. That's a humble leader. And it is.
And I think that's there's a powerful space there.
I agree. massively powerful space in that. And vulnerability, there's a few big words there that go with, it's not cockiness, it's not knowing everything, it's not who you know, it's all of those other soft words that make a really good leader. So
Yeah.
well, I say soft, but they're not soft, but people consider them soft. But humility is a massive one. So Tracie, I have absolutely loved this. I absolutely love chatting to you. You're just a really, really, really bloody good human. And so these elections are happening in about 2 or 3 weeks, and good luck with it all. And I know that if you get in, I absolutely know that if you get in, you will give everything to the community and just, I worry about you, though. I think you'll give too much, but I know you'll give everything. So.
I have got good people around me, so I'm really lucky. And like I said, I'm not the poster child for self-care.
No, we've got to work on that.
I do have to do more work on that. But,
yeah.
making a difference is really important. Standing up for what you believe in, absolutely gold. And if you can walk alongside people on their journey, that's something that not everybody else everybody gets to do, and not everybody appreciates the opportunity to do it. So I feel in my heart that I'm living the dream.
I reckon you are too.
And I'm grateful every day that I can do this, and I can use, my own lived experience of things to inform my work and my practice and then I have this engagement with the community that is, that it really helps me understand their aspirations, and it helps me work better. It makes me a better worker.
Yeah.
Because I have those connections, and I have that sounding board of the community, and I have support from people that are really important to me.
Yeah. And when you said there, I'm living the dream, what the best part of that is, well, of course, it's fantastic that you're living the dream, but even bigger than that is what a lot of people don't see, is that when we're living the dream, when you're living the dream, I'm living the dream, we are actually showing up as role models to encourage and inspire other people to live their dream, and that is so damn important, because that's why we have to show up. We've got to keep showing up, and yes, to have our own dream fulfilled, because it's fantastic, but for other people for their lights to come on as well. And it's such an important job. We get one crack at this bloody life, and use it for the best. So
absolutely, I agree. And it's important to ensure that we have those legacy of relationships and impact. That's really important to me. I want to make a difference. So thank you for having me on today.
Oh, my absolute pleasure. Good luck with the elections, and I will catch up with you very soon, and we'll have a puppy play date.
I'd love to.
All right. Thanks, Tracie.
See ya. Bye.